Could you please support my channel by subscribing? The planet Sovros, known for its turbulent red sky and rugged terrain, had become the epicenter of a brutal war between the unified Terran coalition and the Jaran Empire. Commander Ethan Drake of the Uch destroyer Valor was a seasoned officer battle-hardened by countless conflicts across the galaxy. Yet none had tested him quite like this. His mission was clear: disable the Jaran fleet, secure the planet Sevis, and return to base. The war, as it often does, had other plans. As the chaos of the battle raged on, Drake's team picked up an unusual distress signal. A royal code flashed on the console, one reserved only for the highest-ranking members of the Jaran aristocracy. Lieutenant Murray Scott, fingers dancing across the controls, verified the signal's authenticity. To match the royal house of Jaran, Commander Drake leaned forward in his chair, his eyes fixed on the void of space before him. In the middle of the battlefield, amidst the wreckage and destruction, a lone life pod shimmered, a pod belonging to none other than Princess Kyra, heir to the Jaran throne. Protocol demanded that the Jarans be treated as enemy combatants, and the logical course of action would be to ignore the distress call. However, something in Drake's gut urged him to act. "Prepare a rescue shuttle," Drake ordered calmly. The bridge crew exchanged uneasy glances, surprised by the command, but none questioned it. Drake's reputation as a strategist was beyond reproach, and they trusted his instincts. Moments later, he and a small rescue team descended into Zevros' fiery atmosphere aboard a shuttle, dodging debris from the ongoing conflict. The landscape below was a wasteland of craters and ash, the remnants of years of battle. Yet amid the destruction, nestled between two jagged rocks, was a small, glistening life pod. Drake drew his weapon and signaled his team to scan the area for Jaran soldiers. The Jarans were known for their resilience, tall, muscular beings with dark, gleaming skin and sharp, calculating minds. But today there was no enemy in sight. Only silence surrounded the pod. Inside, Princess Kyra lay injured. So once adorned in regal armor, now charred and torn, her face bore the marks of war, but her eyes still burned with the intensity of a leader. She met Drake's gaze with a mixture of pain and defiance. "Why?" she rasped, her voice weak but unyielding. "Why are you here?" Drake holstered his weapon. "I'm here to save you." Her eyes widened in surprise, but she did not resist. Too weak to argue, she allowed him to help her out of the damaged pod. Together they made their way back to the shuttle. As they ascended from the surface, the war still raged below, but something had shifted. Drake had spared the life of the future ruler of the Jaran Empire, a decision that would send shockwaves across the galaxy. Weeks passed after their return to Ut territory, and speculation was rife. The war continued, but whispers of Drake's daring rescue spread through both human and Jaran spheres. Some questioned his choice, while others praised it as an unexpected act of mercy amidst the chaos of battle. So one morning, a high-priority message arrived for Drake. It was an invitation from the Jaran homeworld itself. Princess Kyra had personally requested an audience with him. Despite the tension still simmering between the two factions, the possibility of delegate on the edge of everyone's thoughts, Drake accepted the invitation. Days later, he found himself aboard a diplomatic cruiser, hurtling toward Jaran Prime. The closer they came to the planet, the more the weight of his decision pressed upon him. He had expected gratitude, perhaps a token of thanks, but a royal audience. What exactly did Princess Kyra intend? Jaran Prime was unlike any world Drake had ever seen. Towering crystalline spires rose into the sky, gleaming under the light of twin suns. The air thrummed with the hum of advanced technology, woven seamlessly with ancient traditions. Upon disembarking, Drake was met by a royal escort and led through the grand corridors of the palace. The throne room was nothing short of magnificent. Its ceiling soared, appearing to brush the stars, while the walls shimmered with intricate mosaics depicting Jaran history. Emperor Zorath, Kyra's father, sat regally upon the throne, a powerful presence that commanded respect. Beside him stood Kyra, now fully healed and resplendent in her royal garments, her fierce determination evident. As Drake approached, murmurs rippled through the gathered nobility. Humans were rare on Jaran Prime, and having one stand before the royal family was unprecedented. Commander Ethan Drake, Emperor Zorath's voice echoed through the hall. "You saved my daughter's life. For that you have earned a place of honor in our empire." Drake bowed slightly. "It was the right thing to do, Your Majesty. I wasn't seeking a reward." Kyra stepped forward, her gaze steady. "And yet, you did something no one expected. You showed mercy when others would have shown cruelty. You changed the course of this war with that single choice." Drake met her gaze. "I believe there's more to this conflict than just fighting. If we're ever going to find peace, someone has to take the first step." The Emperor gave a nod of approval, but it was Kyra who delivered the next shocking declaration. "Your actions were not without consequence, Commander. In recognition of the bond you forged with our people, I offer you the hands of my 7 nieces in marriage." The hall erupted into murmurs of disbelief. The room seemed to tilt as Drake struggled to process her words. "My 7 nieces?" As a symbol of the Jaren Empire's commitment to peace, it was a diplomatic gesture that could either unite the galaxy or plunge it into further chaos. Drake had faced many challenges in his career, but none had prepared him for this. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. Drake, now positioned as a potential royal consort, found himself immersed in Jaren culture and traditions. Each day was a lesson in their ways, preparing him for the responsibilities that came with his new role. Princess Kyra took charge of his military education, teaching him the nuances of Jaren combat. In the training arenas, she introduced him to the sleek, energy-infused weapons of the Jaren warriors. The sparring sessions were grueling, but Drake adapted quickly, blending his human tactics with the fluidity required for Jaren warfare. "You fight well, but you're too direct," Kyra remarked after a particularly intense session. "Jaren combat is about strategy, not just force. Anticipate your opponent's moves, outthink them." "I'll learn," Drake replied, wiping sweat from his brow. As Kyra taught him the ways of war, another of her nieces, Lyria, a scholar, guided him through the vast archives of Jaren Prime. So the halls of knowledge were filled with ancient texts, holographic tomes, and the accumulated wisdom of the Empire. Lyria's lessons were quieter, more introspective, as she introduced Drake to the deep philosophical roots of the Jaren people. "Leadership is about more than ruling," Lyria explained one evening in the archives. "It's about the legacy you leave behind. Our people value tradition because it grounds us. If you're going to join our family, you'll need to understand that legacy." "I respect it," Drake said thoughtfully, "but I want to understand it fully." "You will," Lyria replied with a soft smile. "That's a good start." The remaining nieces, each in their own way, contributed to Drake's education. Neve, the youngest, led him on spiritual journeys to the sacred temples of Jaren Prime, while Delara, a diplomat, taught him the intricacies of Jaren politics. Day by day, Drake began to see the Jarens, not as enemies, but as individuals with unique strengths and vulnerabilities. So 7 nieces, once distant and skeptical, were now becoming his allies, his partners in shaping a new future. Yet beneath the surface, tensions simmered. Many within the Jaren court viewed Drake as an outsider, a human who did not belong among their ancient noble traditions. Chief among his detractors was Duke Malin, a powerful and cunning noble who saw Drake as a threat to the purity of the Jaren Empire. The day of the marriage ceremony loomed, and the atmosphere in the palace grew tense. It was to be a grand event, with dignitaries from across the galaxy gathering to witness the union that could reshape interstellar politics. However, whispers of a plot to disrupt the ceremony reached Drake's ears. Malin, it seemed, was not content to let the union proceed. On the eve of the wedding, Kyra and Lyria met with Drake in his quarters. "Malin's been too quiet," Kyra said, pacing. "He's planning something. We've heard rumors," Lyria added. "Some of the servants have mentioned secret meetings. Malin intends to sabotage the ceremony, perhaps even assassinate members of the royal family." "We can't let that happen," Drake said, his resolve hardening. A plan was quickly formed. Kyra would lead a detachment of loyal soldiers to intercept Malin's forces before they could reach the ceremony. Lyria and Neve would remain close to the royal family, keeping watch for any suspicious activity. Drake, however, positioned himself at the palace's entrance, ready to confront Malin if it came to that. The day of the ceremony arrived, and the palace was filled with an air of both celebration and tension. As the vows were being exchanged, chaos erupted at the far end of the grand hall. Malin's private guards stormed in, weapons drawn, but Kyra and her soldiers were ready. A fierce battle ensued as they intercepted the attackers, cutting off their advance. Duke Malin himself charged forward, his face twisted in fury. Drake met him head-on, their blades clashing in a storm of strikes. Malin was a skilled fighter, but Drake's training with Kyra had prepared him for this moment. With a final, decisive blow, Drake disarmed Malin, ending his treachery. "It's over," Drake said, his voice steady. Malin, defeated, glared at him. "You've destroyed everything." "No," Drake replied. "We've built something new, and you can't stop it." With Malin's plot foiled, the ceremony resumed. The final vows were spoken, and as Drake stood beside the 7 nieces, he felt a sense of unity stronger than ever before. Together they had overcome treachery, and now they stood as a united front, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. In the weeks following the ceremony, Drake and his new family embarked on a series of diplomatic missions, solidifying the alliance between humanity and the Jaren Empire. Though there were still whispers of discontent, the tide had turned. Systems that had once viewed the Jarens as enemies now saw them as potential allies, and the galaxy began to shift toward a future built on cooperation, not conflict. Drake stood at the helm of this new era, united with the 7 princesses, ready to lead the galaxy into an uncertain but hopeful future. Together, They had forged a bond that would shape the fate of their worlds, and the galaxy was watching, hopeful for the dawn of a new age of peace. Months had passed since the ceremony that solidified the alliance between the United Terran Coalition and the Jaran Empire. The galaxy, still healing from the scars of war, watched as Commander Ethan Drake and the 7 princesses navigated the delicate web of interstellar politics and diplomacy. Their marriage had become more than a symbol of peace. It was a living testament to the power of unity in the face of adversity. But even in the wake of Malin's failed coup, there were whispers of rebellion. There were those in the Jaran Empire who believed that the marriage had corrupted their proud traditions. In the shadows, factions began to stir, still loyal to the idea that strength came from isolation, not unity. Ethan Drake, now a fixture in the Jaran royal family, stood in the palace gardens, the air filled with the soft hum of bioluminescent flora and the distant glow of Jaran Prime's twin suns. He had come to love this world, its people, its customs, and most of all, the 7 women who had once been strangers but now felt like his true family. As he stood gazing at the serene beauty of the garden, Kyra approached. Dressed in her ceremonial armor, she still carried the weight of a warrior, but her eyes had softened in the months they had spent together. "You're thinking about the unrest, aren't you?" she asked, her voice steady but laced with concern. Drake nodded. "There's always something. Even after Malin's defeat, it feels like there's more to come." Kyra stepped closer, her hand resting on the hilt of her energy blade. "We knew this wouldn't be easy. Change never is. But we've come this far, Ethan. We've proved that strength isn't just about tradition, it's about adaptation too." He turned to face her, the weight of his responsibilities clear in his expression. "It's not just about the Jarans anymore. Humans too. They need to see that this alliance is more than a political maneuver. It's real. It has to be." Kyra smiled faintly. "Then we'll keep fighting for it. Together." Just as the words left her lips, a palace attendant appeared in the distance, running toward them. "Commander Drake, Princess Kyra, the council has convened. There's been a message. It's urgent." Drake exchanged a look with Kyra before they quickly followed the attendant to the council chambers. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. The royal family had gathered along with several members of the Jaran High Command. At the head of the table stood Lyria, the scholar princess, her usual calm demeanor replaced by a tight-lipped expression of worry. "There's been an incident," she began. "Reports are coming in from the outer systems. A fleet of rogue Jaran ships, remnants loyal to Duke Malin, have attacked a Terran supply convoy. They're claiming to act in defense of the Empire's purity, declaring your marriage to us, Ethan, as a betrayal of Jaran sovereignty." So Drake felt the familiar pull of war gnawing at his gut. He had hoped that with Malin's defeat, the hardliners would have backed down, but now it was clear they hadn't disappeared. They had simply been waiting for the right moment to strike. Princess Delara, ever the diplomat, spoke next. "We cannot allow this to escalate. If the Terran Alliance sees this as a direct attack from the Empire, it could shatter everything we've worked to build." Drake clenched his fists. "What's the Council's position?" Lyria looked to Kyra, then to her other sisters. "They're divided. Many want to send a message of strength by crushing the rebellion, but some worry that moving too forcefully will make martyrs of Malin's followers. We have to act," Kyra said firmly, her eyes flashing with the intensity that Drake had come to know so well. "We need to act wisely. This is more than a battle. It's a test. If we fail, we lose more than just the alliance, we lose the future." A plan quickly formed between the royal family and Drake. It would be a joint mission, one that showed the strength of the unity, both human and Jaran. They would approach the rebel fleet not with overwhelming force, but with a display of solidarity. A chance to remind both sides of what was at stake. Days later, the Valor and a fleet of Jaran ships arrived in the neutral zone where the rogue fleet had stationed itself. The tension on the bridge was palpable. As Drake stood at the command console, flanked by Kyra in her battle armor and Lyria monitoring diplomatic channels, they prepared to face their enemies not with weapons drawn, but with an offer of peace. "They're hailing us," said Mara, now Drake's trusted lieutenant. "It's the rebel commander. Put him through," Drake ordered, his voice steady. The holographic image of the rebel leader, a former Jaran general loyal to Malin's vision, flickered to life. His face was hard, lined with years of battle, and his eyes burned with hatred for what Drake represented. "Commander Drake," the general spat. "Or should I call you traitor?" "I've done nothing to betray the Jaran Empire," Drake replied calmly. "Nor have the Jarans betrayed their own people. What we've built is a path forward for both our worlds, and your marriage is a mockery of everything we stand for." The general roared. "You, a human, do not belong in our empire, and those princesses traitors to their own blood." Kyra stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "This war isn't about blood or about race. It's about the future. a future where strength comes from more than just isolation and force. You're fighting to protect something that's already changing, the general sneered. Change? You think this farce is change? The Jaren Empire was built on strength, on purity. You've tainted it. Drake took a breath. Look at where your strength has brought you. Look at the galaxy around you. Systems are falling apart because of leaders like you who refuse to adapt. We're offering you a chance to be part of something that builds, not destroys. There was a long, heavy silence. On the bridge, the tension was palpable as they waited for the rebel commander's response. Finally, the general's expression faltered just for a moment, as if the weight of years of war and division had begun to settle on his shoulders. How do you speak of peace, but what will happen when the Terran Alliance turns on us? When they see us as weak? They won't, Lyria interjected, her calm voice a soothing contrast to the heated exchange. Because this alliance isn't about one side dominating the other. It's about creating something new together. The general's eyes flickered between the faces on the screen. Drake, Kyra, Lyria, and the rest of the Jaren royal family. He saw not just enemies, but a united front that transcended politics and bloodlines. Perhaps, the general said slowly, it's time to end this. The rogue fleet surrendered, not in defeat, but in the realization that the galaxy had changed, and that the future was not in their hands, but in the hands of those willing to build bridges, not burn them. The news of the peaceful resolution spread quickly through the galaxy, and with it came a renewed hope that the unity forged between humans and Jarens would stand the test of time. Back on Jaren Prime, as the twin suns set once more over the crystalline spires, Drake stood with Kyra and her sisters in the royal gardens. The weight of war had lifted, if only for a moment, and in its place was something far more powerful: hope. We did it, Kyra said softly, her hand slipping into Drake's. We did, he replied, looking at the women who had become more than just allies or political partners. They were his family now, bound not by blood, but by something far deeper: love, trust, and a shared future. As they gazed at the stars, they knew the challenges were far from over. But they also knew that whatever came next, they would face it together, stronger than ever before. The galaxy, once torn apart by division, was slowly healing. And as it healed, it looked toward a future shaped by those who dared to believe in the power of unity, those like Ethan Drake and the 7 princesses of the Jaren Empire. And together, they would chart a new course across the stars.